This episode of The Loyal Sun Show is brought to you by Rendine Consulting. If you've listened to us for any amount of time, you know all about Rendine Consulting's commitment to the Pitt Athletics program and brand, and how much they've meant to the Loyal Suns. That's Rendine Consulting, providing investment managers assistance with technology integration. Visit www.rendineconsulting.com for more information. That's www.rendineconsulting.com. Hello and welcome back to The Loyal Sun Show. That's at The Loyal Suns on Twitter and Instagram. Follow us there and follow us here for Pitt sports content you won't want to miss. If you love being undefeated at the Pete against ranked teams and hate Damar Hamlin conspiracies, this is the place for you. The Loyal Sun Show, a safe, sunshiny place for your Pitt Athletics fix. My name is Dylan. My name is David, and I'm joined as always by Squid and Dylan, and we have a great show for you here today. Panther-Lair staff writer Jim Hammett is joining us to talk about all things Pitt basketball and football. But first of all, boy, do we have to talk about that game yesterday. That was electric.
An absolutely packed house at the Pete, and a game that felt like we weren't going to win for about 38 minutes, and then Jamarius Burton happened, some goofy Isaiah Wong things happened, Greg Elliott, and at the end of the day, we walked out of the Pete victorious. So that was as good of an atmosphere I think I've seen. The Clemson game was pretty good. Obviously, leaving with a win makes the atmosphere feel a little better, but the Pitt fans showed up and showed out, and so did Jamarius Burton and Blake Hinson.
It was a wild week. The fact that the game yesterday was so crazy kind of makes you forget about how crazy the Wake Forest game also was. Like, that game came down to a potential game-winning 3 from Wake Forest, so we survived that. Scratched and clawed back into the Miami game. Another Hail Mary 3 attempt from almost the same spot, just a little bit further back on Saturday. But yeah, nerve-wracking, exciting. A lot of big shots made both games, so can't ask for a better week for the basketball team.
Yeah, if Pitt basketball is going to do this to me twice a week, I need to take up like jogging or cycling or something, get the heart a little bit healthier so I can, stop feeling like I ran a marathon at the end of every single Pitt games. But what an absolute roller coaster. Let's talk about the Miami game because it's a little bit fresher. There were certain points of that game where I was like, oh, we are going to lose by 25. And then the strangest thing happened where we did not. You guys were at the game. I had a thing. Tell me just about the emotional roller coaster that you experienced.
Well, it really felt like Miami was just the better team. They were bigger, more physical. Pitt was having some issues containing Jordan Miller and Omier down low. So it felt like there was a stretch where Miami hit, I think, 3 threes on back-to-back-to-back possessions, and that was the point. I know when I looked up and saw 51-40 on the scoreboard during a TV timeout, I was like, yeah, I don't think we're going to win this one. There's just nothing we've done this game that has any evidence that we're going to be able to get stops and get buckets at the rate we need to. And then we did. It was going into halftime down 5 felt like a win. And then they came out, looked like we might go on a little run. Miami punched us in the mouth with that barrage of threes. But this Pitt team, man, is resilient. They just don't give up when they go down 8. It wasn't a game where Pitt kind of just threw their hands up. It was like, this isn't our day. To the very last, it basically took every second of that game to pull ahead and get the win.
Yeah, I'll focus on the other side. Miami's defense was tough early on. Like we got off to a
Yeah.
pretty good lead, but after the first media timeout, they really locked down. They were giving our guards trouble, and we were not getting very good looks. They were kind of the aggressors. And it was easy to say, like, well, Pitt's coming off an emotional win. They set the program record for threes. This could be a letdown game coming off of that emotional high. But I do this thing during games whenever I get mad where I say, oh, that's the game. We lost. And
How many times did you say it yesterday?
I think 2, both in the second half. I think whenever Isaiah Wong hit that 3 to answer one of our threes to put it back up to like a 10-point game, maybe 11, I was like, well, if they're going to make that.
I was getting flashbacks of Darren Green from the Florida State game when he started hitting those jumpers down the stretch.
Yeah, Squid, I do that during every single Pitt football game, and that's why you guys stopped sitting with me. So kind of I don't know, something doesn't feel right about that. But no, there were absolutely points where I thought, yeah, this is not happening. Miami, like you said, so good defensively, and Pitt is good for like 10 to 15 standard issue. Why the hell did he shoot that contested 3 per game? And Miami is not the team to do that against. So they kind of cleaned that up in the second half, though. They cleaned a lot of stuff up in the second half.
Can any of us believe that we were down by 11 with we went on 11-0 run the last 2 minutes, 17 seconds. Like, that didn't register until this morning. I'm like, yeah, I knew we were down, but damn, we really locked it up.
Yeah, I mean, I keep going back to that little baby run, that 8-2 run in the last minute 40 of the first half, where I think things could have been really ugly going into half. And then it was, I think, Hinson hit that 3 going into the break to pull us within 5. God knows where we would have been in the second half if we didn't have the baby run. But then we found ourselves down again by 11 in the last 2. So I guess the narrative is Pitt was closing out halves yesterday, and really a heroic effort to claw back at multiple stages of the game.
Yeah, I think what Greg Elliott did can sum up this Pitt team. He had a good game by all accounts. And then he had that one big turnover where he thought that we had such a great defensive possession, get the ball back, can't inbound it. What does he do the next play? Steals it. What does he do after that? Makes 2 big free throws. He was unfazed by the fuck up, and he made up for it big time. That's just kind of how Pitt is. They get punched in the face, but they ain't done.
Yeah, I was kind of ready to come on here today, and after Greg Elliott gave the ball away when we had it almost locked up, I was getting ready to do the whole like, oh, you got to feel for the kid. I can't imagine the way he's feeling right. Because that's the college version of if it was a pro athlete, we'd be coming on here and being like, you dumbass. But no, I felt very sympathetic for him. And then what does he do coming out of the timeout? Strips the ball under the hoop, keeps himself collected, and there will be, no lamenting Greg Elliott's mistakes today, because God, if he did not make up for them immediately and tenfold.
Yeah, it was just an absolutely huge play to make that strip and answer. Can we figure out the inbound thing, though? Like, this is insane. How much of an issue this has been this year.
Figure it out.
It feels like it should be like this at no level of basketball should be this big of a problem. I understand, like, tough spot. Miami's going to be all over you. Put a big guy on the inbounder. It wasn't off a made basket, so he couldn't run the baseline, but just figure it out. Fitfo. Capable. Let's get something put together. I know you want Jamarius Burton to be the ball handler. He's the short-handed guy. He's a poised leader. He'll hit the free throws for you. I think I would use Jamarius Burton as the inbounder moving forward, because Elliott and Nelly Cummings can both shoot very consistent from the line. We need someone who is going to figure it out and get the ball in bounds and not throw it away.
Yeah, that's been way too consistent a thread this year. They need to run that inbounds play where you have, the inbounder and then the four other guys line up like wide receivers, and then just run like crossing and post routes.
Yes.
Yeah, maybe that'll do it. But like, take ball, throw to teammate.
Or you could just make one cut and hit the guy in the hands.
Something. That's enough bitching.
Don't spike it at your feet.
I'm done bitching about a win over a ranked team at the Pete. I would appreciate if they clean that up.
Please inbound the ball. We got a request to print that T-shirt.
Yeah.
So we talk about the game a lot with Jim upcoming. Is there any other loose ends we need to tie up from Wake Forest or the game yesterday?
I'm going to keep saying it. Jamarius Burton for ACC Player of the Year. He's been unreal. Even when he's not scoring, like the Wake Forest game, he finished with 6 points, still had 9 assists, still creating shots, bunch of big shots for Blake Hinton. Blake Hinton seems like he's coming on. I mean, he's had a good year to this point, but the last 2 games, he's really just shot the heck out of the ball. So, but yeah, Jamarius Burton, 19, 10, and 7 yesterday, ACC Player of the Year. They're going to give it to Baycott or someone, but I'm going to keep pounding that drum.
Him ripping that ball off of Wong yesterday, 2 Titans going at it as the clock is winding down. It had to be so poetic, a microcosm for, the way those two had been going back and forth all day. Just poetic, a thing of beauty.
He's a dog.
Hey, Panther Nation. Have you ever crashed your spin scooter going down Cardiac Hill? Or wiped out on an icy sidewalk in South Oakland? Have you ever been hit by a bus crossing Forbes Avenue? Well, you may not have to pay that hospital bill on your own. If you're hurt in an accident, pick up the phone and call Guido at Gurrera Law. Guido Gurrera is a University of Pittsburgh Law School grad, Pitt football superfan, and experienced personal injury attorney who's licensed in Pennsylvania and Ohio. And it is 100% free to call him for consultation on your personal injury case. So the next time you get rear-ended in Oakland rush hour traffic, or if you fall down the stairs at Peters, call Guido. All joking aside, Oakland and the world can be a very dangerous place. If you need legal help, talk to Guido. He'll treat you like a fellow Pitt fan and never like a number. 412-229-7757 is the number to call. That's 412-229-7757 to call Guido. You can also contact Gurrera Law at GurreraLaw.com. That's Gurrera. Call Guido today.
Please welcome on to the Loyal Sun Show, staff writer for the Panther-Lair, Jim Hammett. Jim, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. I've been looking forward to this all week, and I think this is going to be a lot of fun.
As if we, yeah. So are you in as good of a mood as we are right now, riding high after that Pitt win?
Yeah, I'm not really supposed to root for Pitt or anything, but I root for them in the sense that my message boards won't be a mess as long as Pitt keeps winning. So it's good for business if Pitt wins. So the message boards are content for a couple hours, so that makes an easy day for me.
Well, it is true that when morale is high, the boards are at their best, but even after the wins, people are pretty upset. I think after last night, though, everyone's feeling pretty good. No complaints. Fewer complaints.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, we find a way to still make them a mess, regardless. I know we had a lot of people tweeting at us that Pitt shoots too many threes after they set a program record for made threes against Wake Forest. And if that doesn't sum up the neuroses of Pitt fans to complain about a thing that they just did well enough to set a record after a huge win. I mean, it's a beautiful symbol for who we are.
Yeah, and the thing with that, it was like they shot 50%. So yeah, they made like 18 threes, but like it was good. Like that's what you want to shoot.
Yeah, that's pretty ideal. So let's talk about the game yesterday. Pitt very much looked, I don't want to say out of it at certain points, but there were the makings of an ass beating at various points in both the first and second half. How do you think they were able to stick around and eventually pull ahead at the most critical moments?
You know, and when he talked to like Jeff Capel this year, and like one of the phrases he's been using a lot is like this team is just consumed with winning. And I really kind of think that's a real thing. And, you know, with the crowd yesterday, I really think they just kind of like fed off the energy. But, you know, I rewatched the game today, and the thing that stuck out to me is like during that like 11-0 run to end the game, it's like 4 different guys made a shot. Burton was coming down with rebounds and steals. So it's really a team effort. And like, there's been times this season where, you know, Burton's been the guy or Hinson's been the guy. So like they just have a lot of guys that like if they need a play, they can get it. And they just don't have to rely on one person. So I think that's kind of the best quality of this team this year.
Do you get the sense that Jeff Capel's having a little bit more fun this year? I know in the past it seemed, and obviously losing is very fun, but it seems like he's had some teams where even they had talented guys, it was like it felt like it was kind of pulling teeth with coaching them, the different personalities and everything. Do you get the sense that Capel's maybe having a little more fun with this group?
You know, he always like all season long, he's just said they like playing for each other. They like being around each other. And I mean, as we saw like the past couple of seasons, like when it goes wrong, there was always a lot of finger pointing. There was always a lot of like, oh, you hear this, you know, they didn't get along off the court and just stuff like that. So, I mean, I really do think this team is pretty well connected. And it's a very unique thing because, you know, when you start 5 transfers, you have people coming from different backgrounds. I mean, there's no like, it's like, this is how we do things at Pitt. They had to like reinvent the entire culture this year. And it's really amazing how they did it. And I do get the sense that, yeah, I mean, of course, winning's better. I mean, I've sat through some Jeff Capel sad press conferences after some losses the past couple of years. So it's definitely, he's more upbeat, and it's like, I don't know how you couldn't be, I guess.
So do you think it makes it a little bit harder for him to establish a culture with all these transfers? Or do you think bringing in all these older guys who have won games and who are mature and able to get along with each other is going to be able to set up the Pitt program long term? Because I think that's what we all want right now. We want to return to what we were in the early 2000s. How is he going to be able to do that with this team as like the benchmark?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And like, I know he hasn't played much or hasn't contributed much, but like John Hughley like had a big part in all of this. Like, because if you remember last offseason, like they had to get 7 guys. Like it was a complete start over. But I just remember like he was involved in the recruiting process. Like Capel even said like he was giving them like when he would see someone like at the transfer portal, he'd give them like a list of names. So like he had a big part of that. So like I think having him and I think Burton, they were kind of like 2 strong like culture guys. And I think even Will Jeffress is kind of the same thing. So I think there was a good core in place. But whenever you recruit graduate transfers, you obviously want guys that have won before or, you know, kind of bring those qualities. And you look at like Nelly Cummings, like his team made the tournament like 2 or 3 years in a row. He's won conference championships before. So when you bring in a point guard like that, that was definitely by design. Yeah, he's a good player, but also he's a good leader. So I think it just kind of everything just kind of about it, like all the buttons they pressed this year kind of worked. And, you know, I think they kind of just needed to catch a break with some of these, you know, at a certain point.
The forces of the universe absolutely owe to Pitt basketball.
Yeah, and it's kind of wild. You wouldn't expect this many transfers to come in and all click pretty well. There's no weak links out of the guys they got. Everyone who plays, everyone they got is a contributor, and they all seem to be connected off the court, or at least they get along and aren't fighting each other. So the fact that we got this many new faces in 1 year and it's all working is very impressive, because that's not as easy as I think many Pitt fans think.
No, and it definitely isn't. And like just college basketball in general it's like, yeah, you can build a program, but every year you're kind of looking at the transfer portal. The game's really changed in the past 5 years. So you're going to have this from year to year. I mean, yeah, you're still going to want to live off of high school recruits. You still want to do that. But at the same time, you can see how quickly you can change a team. And even just teams this week, like Miami has transfers, Wake Forest has transfers. It's just kind of how you have to do it now. And it's, can you make your transfers fit into what you're trying to do? And obviously this year, that's exactly what Capel did.
Yeah, I think that this obviously has been Capel's best coaching job, and you always have these fans who watch the games and they're like, they don't run anything. They're just five, spread it out, let Burton beat the guy off the dribble, high ball screen. But I really think with the team that Capel's put together, I feel like he's just kind of figured out what works. I mean, they don't have a post presence like a John Hughley that you would run through the post. So let your senior leader guards and Jamarius Burton and Ellie Cummings just go to work, let them create offense, you have Henson and Elliott in the corners as shooters. And I don't know what you guys think when you watch the games, but I think this is the only way this Pitt team could really play and be really effective is by putting the ball in Burton's hands for the last 10 minutes of the game. I mean, I think that's a credit to Jeff Capel by just putting the trust in these senior guards' hands and letting them run with it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't, like you said, I don't know how you could play any other way. Like there's been like a couple times like recently, hey, Jeff, have you gotten the ball to Federico enough? Like, of course they have. Like he's not someone you're going to like post up with. I mean, like he's the guy he's big and you need him to rebound and do what he does. So, I mean, they're playing like a 4-out style, but that's what they have. That's kind of what they are.
This might be crazy, but I'm going to give Jeff Capel credit for adapting to what he has. I think he does that really well each year, even if they aren't good. He knows, like, this is how we're going to have to win games. Like last year, it was giving John Hughley the ball in the post 25 times a game. It's unconventional. It's not very sustainable, but that was our best shot, and they did it. This year, it's spread them out. We have these shooters finally. So I think they found a good thing.
So huge week for Pitt basketball. 2 massive wins that they absolutely had to have. Jim, how has this week changed your outlook on the remainder of the season for Pitt basketball? What does it mean for their tournament chances, their ACC chances, and the future of Pitt basketball?
Yeah, I think, I mean, obviously they collected, like, Miami's going to be one of their 2 or 3 best wins all year. So that's huge. But, looking at the remainder of the schedule is like, it's very unique because there's more chances for bad losses than there are for good wins right now. I mean, you have Carolina, you have Miami, then you have 7 games against teams that aren't going to make the tournament. So yeah, at that point, and when you look at Pitt right now in the computers, like they're down. Like the computers don't like Pitt. I think they're 62nd in the net rankings right now. And it's like when you look at like some comparable teams, it's like they have better quad 1 wins, but like that loss to Florida State like really hurts them. And so that's why the rest of the season's so unique, because they should go 7-2 maybe, like around that. But like if they lose one of those games, if they have an off night against Florida State again or Boston College, something like that, like that could really hurt them. And I go back to last year, I think Wake Forest was 22-9 in the regular season, and they didn't make the tournament. So that's kind of like been in the back of my mind. It's like, all right, the computers don't love Pitt and they don't have a lot of chances for great wins. So it's going to be very interesting here these next 9 games.
Yeah, I feel like, in my mind, a team from the ACC with single-digit losses should get in the tournament. And then I think of Wake Forest last year, and I think of that everyone around college basketball seems to be down on the ACC. The ACC is down. They're not what they used to be. The UNC and Duke aren't what people expected them to be. So I feel like there is kind of this – I've seen brackets with 7 ACC teams in, and then I've seen people say, that they might be a 5-bid league. So it could be part of me is like, we need to just root for the teams we've beat already. So those wins are really good wins, and hopefully Florida State can salvage some of the season, although they're 7-15, so there's not much to salvage. But it feels like we have to maybe get some help from our ACC counterparts at some point. But now they're all beating each other.
Obligatory Big Ten jab right here. The Big Ten has one ranked team. They've been the big dog the last couple of years. They got Purdue, and that's it right now. So here comes the ACC back to claim the number one spot. No, not number one spot, but we're climbing up there.
We're back to claim a spot.
Yeah, and I think something we talked about, you mentioned it there, Jim. There's not a lot of quality win opportunities left. So really good that we got a few in our back pocket already.
Yeah, for sure. And like, even though we just made the Big Ten jab, but like Northwestern, that win's actually kind of good for them, and they've actually played well. So like, that's kind of like another team Pitt fans to like, because they don't matter in like the grand scheme of things, like to Pitt fans. So like, you might as well like root for them to win the Big Ten at this point.
Yeah, like we always say, the Big Ten sucks except for specifically Northwestern. We've been saying it for years.
Everyone knows that.
Yeah, everyone knows. So what do you think needs to happen the rest of the way for, one, Pitt to make the tournament, but also if Pitt is, two, going to make a splash in the tournament?
I mean, I think 6-3 down the stretch, 5-4 probably gets them in the tournament. And, you know, maybe they have to win one in Greensboro. I mean, you look at the schedule. If they go 8-1 here, I mean, I think they get away from that like 10-11 seed, and you know, now you're talking about maybe a 6 seed, something like that. So it would be interesting to see, because they haven't really had success in the ACC tournament because they're always on the first day. They're always gone by Tuesday night. So it's been a few years. I think the first year Pitt was in the ACC, they made like a little bit of a run. I want to say like they beat North Carolina, then lost for Virginia. So I mean, and whenever you kind of like compare like Pitt and like their best years in the ACC, it was their very first year and probably this year.
So what, I guess another way to ask it would be, what does this team need to figure out and start doing better if we want a little bit of excitement come, you know, NCAA tournament time, you know, maybe a Sweet 16, dare I say? You know, what would Pitt need to fix for such a result?
I don't know if it would need to fix. I think it would just be maintain this level of shooting right now, which is a hard ask. But I mean, in the tournament, it always comes down to, can you score? And that's like all those years like Pitt was in the tournament, they were bounced early because they didn't have a go-to scorer. They were like a defensive built team. And even for so many years, Virginia was the same way. It's like they didn't have that one go-to guy. And I think it's fortunate for them this year is that they have multiple guys. And like, I think when push comes to shove, Burton or Hinson can kind of be that catalyst that, you know, you need a bucket and, you know, at the under 8 timeout in an NCAA tournament game. I think you can run stuff for them, and I think they can deliver. So that's kind of a good spot of, you know, where Pitt is right now. That, you know, it's a more offensive-minded Pitt team than many I can remember.
Yeah, we see it all the time. Teams that make surprising runs in the tournament always have that one guy that is a guy that can completely take over games and make clutch shots and be really reliable. And I think that Burton can be that guy. And I think if I polled the room, you know, the majority would say Burton can be that guy as well.
Yeah, I mean, yesterday Hinson was the leading scorer. I just rewatched the highlights. I forgot how many big threes he made in the second half when we thought we were down and out, but a Burton 3 kept us afloat. But Jamarius Burton had 19, 10, and 7 and 3 steals. That is, I don't care what level you're playing at, that is ridiculous. And Pitt hasn't had a guy like that in a long time that can just control a game like the way he can do it.
I mean, like when you like I've been trying to think of like who I would compare him to. And like he's kind of like Lamar Patterson, but not quite the 3-point shooter, but he's kind of that like wing that you can run stuff through, and like he's kind of like a blend of like Brad Wanamaker and Lamar Patterson. So just kind of like one of those things. But yeah, like you said, I mean, 10 rebounds, like 9, like he's been like having crazy assist games lately. They can run everything through him. So even down the stretch, he didn't have one of those buckets. Like his hands were still all over that win.
Actually posed this question on Twitter the other day. I wanted to see what you think, Jim. I said Jamarius Burton is the best pick guard since blank. So I had a lot of names thrown out. Some people were mentioning Wanamaker. Someone said Xavier Johnson. I think Burton's a good bit better than Xavier Johnson was here. But who do you think? Where would you put Burton in the rank of these pick guards? I mean, definitely the best since the Capel era, but maybe even since the Big East days.
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, I guess like because you would probably call like Lamar Patterson a wing. So as a straight up guard, I think you would have to go Wanamaker, and that's what the 2011 team. So best guard of the past decade.
That's high praise. This interview with Jim Hammett is brought to you by Rowback. You can get 20% off your first order of performance polos, hoodies, Q-zips, or joggers using promo code LoyalSons on rowback.com. That's RHOBACK. Hey guys, are you wearing your Rowback hoodies?
Oh yeah. This is the comfiest piece of clothing I own.
I was legitimately excited to open up the package and throw this puppy on. No pun intended, because their logo's like a dog. But yeah.
Yeah, I'll be like completely honest. Hearing Rowback ads in the past, everyone acts like the thing advertising on their podcast is like the greatest thing that has ever happened to them. But this is legitimately the nicest article of clothing I own. I have not taken it off since I opened the box on Friday. This thing is starting to smell like Peter's at 2 a.m. But like I cannot stress enough the quality of the stuff that they sent us. So thank you to them for sending it. We're hopefully working on some pit gear with them in the future. But seriously, if you want the most comfortable clothes that you can own to work out, lounge, go to work, or golf in, rowback.com, RHOBACK, 20% off with promo code LoyalSons. It has to be your first order, though. If you have ordered through them before, please make a fake email or the promo code will not work. But again, this stuff is worth every penny. And we are legitimately not saying that because they are paying us money. This is the nicest thing I own. So it sounds like we're all on the same team here. Hit fans, book your tickets to Houston. This team's doing the damn thing. But we also want to talk a little bit about football with you, because a lot of exciting things happening around the Pitt football program, between recruitment, the transfer portal, and the Pitt Athletic department finally getting on board with people giving them money for NIL, or I'm sorry, Alliance 412 money, because you can't do it directly. I actually don't know the rules. I don't think anyone does. So I wanted to ask you, what is your general outlook right now on Pitt football going into the spring? Are we happy with what we have gotten from the transfer portal? Are there a couple more things, extraneous pieces that you think that they need to be looking for? What is the vibes?
I think they did pretty well in the transfer portal, and just the way they ended the season, and beating UCLA. And I'm a little bullish on the team because you have the 4 starters back on the line. The defensive line is going to be good. I mean, I think they're just solid across the board. I think like the one thing they're kind of missing is like, I don't know who their go-to like playmaker is on offense. Like I think Rodney Hammond's pretty good. I think Bub Means and like Mumfield aren't as bad as like some, they get labeled a little bit, but they don't have like that one like Izzy. They don't have Jordan Addison. They don't have like that one guy you can rely on. And I think that really does make a difference. So that's kind of like the one thing. And at this point, you're not going to find it. Like you're not going to like find a dude in the transfer portal that's like an elite playmaker. So I think what
USC did last year around this time, actually even later.
Yeah, that was pretty late actually, if I recall.
That was
like the last day.
Yeah, like a couple hours before. But yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of like the thing right now is like, I think they're solid across the board. I think they're good like up front, like how they have been. It's just like, I just don't know who that like one dude is on offense that's going to like kind of carry them.
So then who do you think of the transfers we picked up, and let's leave Jerkovic. Let's leave Phil out of it. Who do you think is the most impact transfer we've received thus far?
I think Donovan McMillan's going to play a lot because you have both starting safeties out, and none of the guys like kind of returning or like obvious candidates to start. I thought Javon McIntyre came on pretty strong at the end, but I think I really think McMillan can step right in and be a starter, or at least like play a lot, even in the nickel. He was solid for Florida. I mean, he played every game of his career. He didn't redshirt or anything, so he's part of the team. I think he was just looking for a bigger role, and I think like he kind of fits into what Pitt does defensively. So I really expect him to come in and be a starter.
Yeah, hopefully he can step in and just be a full-time starter in one of those spots. But I think at the very least, McMillan will be kind of like a young Eric Hallett, where he's on the field a lot, even though he's not a starter, maybe in different spots, corner, slot, safety, depending on all that. So I think that's a big addition. I think that's also our most impactful.
What of the incoming recruits? Do you see anyone in that group from the class of 2023 that can make an instant impact?
Like it's hard because I do think their best recruit is Jordan Bass. Like I think he's a stud. Like I think he fits into their defensive scheme. He was like the best high school football player in Virginia this year. So I've never really known a Pitt freshman linebacker to come in and play right away. That's kind of one of those spots that they do rotate a lot. I think they usually play 6 linebackers, but I mean, I think after a redshirt season, like he'll be on the field right away. So I don't know if there's necessarily, because the spots they recruit well are defense, and Pitt's usually pretty good on defense. So it's just kind of hard for freshmen to crack the lineup.
Conspiracy time, Jim. Why is Jordan Bass only a 3-star on Rivals? What's going on there?
See, you're bringing the message boards to life here. I mean, that has been a question for a long time. I don't know. I mean, he's like a top 100 guy on 3, I think, and 247 has him pretty high. ESPN has him pretty high. So I don't know why Rivals is lagging behind. They can only ask Chris and I for recommendations, and we can only give them. We do not give the stars.
How do you feel the dozen times a day when you see the Rivals shills for big programs conspiracy on the board? Do you just kind of sit there like, fuck did I do? I'm just can we be cool, guys? Because there's a lot of people who come at your employer and say that they're only going to give someone an extra star or a couple extra points if they have offers from Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia, and Michigan.
I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't know how to take it because there's so many recruits out there. It's an incredibly tough process. I don't envy the guys that have to make the stars. I mean, I'm sure you want to keep all 130 teams happy with their recruits, but it's impossible to do that. So there's not much I can do about it. I mean, it's funny whenever people get mad at Chris and I'm like, guys, we really have nothing to do with it at all.
Which is right about the Panthers.
Somebody on Panther-Lair with like a corkboard and string in their basement, and within the next year or two, they'll come out and say, like, I've uncovered this anti-Pitt bias. It stems back to this founder, and this guy hates Pitt because he didn't get in there, and his ex-girlfriend went to Pitt, something like that, and then
she broke his heart.
Everything.
Yeah. It's the Charlie Kelly meme, like in real life. Like someone's figuring this out.
So do you? I'm not asking you if you think that Rivals is getting a bag from Ohio State to bump up their recruiting class or something. But do you think that there is some sort of correlation that, they're grinding tape and they're kind of on the cusp between 2 ratings for a kid? And, well, if Ohio State and Notre Dame see something in him, that must mean, these guys know what they're doing. So, and they use that to benefit a player.
Yeah, I definitely think sometimes if you're close on a prospect or you're not 100%, you're going to look at the offer sheet. I mean, that's what everyone else does. Like anytime Pitt gets a recruit, the first thing everyone does is like, okay, so they picked him over Kentucky, Michigan State, blah, blah, blah. So I do think there is some value in looking at that. I don't know if that's the end all be all in terms of evaluating prospects, but it's definitely a factor.
It's just kind of, I find it a little bit funny because, Pitt's most recent recruiting class in 2023, there were some people who kind of poo-pooed it, myself included, because it was mostly 3 stars. And I think we were instructed, or smart Pitt fans, smarter than me, looked at all the offers and were like, no, these guys are 3 stars, sure, but look at the schools that we're beating out for some of these kids. And then Pitt fans then turn around and complain and say like, oh, Rivals is just judging these kids because of their offers, when we are doing the same thing to, justify that Pitt is recruiting better progressively.
Yeah, there's definitely some of that. And like at the end, like, I don't know if you guys like followed it like that closely, but there was like a couple weeks there. It's like, all right, some schools looking at Jordan Bass, some schools looking at Shadarian Harrison. Like there is like that like last push at the end. And so like, that tells me something. Like if a school's coming at one of Pitt's recruits at the very end, they think he's pretty good. So I do think, yeah, you don't want to like have to deal with those headaches at the end of a recruiting class, but at the same time, I think that's kind of also a sign you recruited well.
Yeah, I love whenever everyone says, oh, this guy's only like a 5.5 3-star, and then 2 weeks later he's on a visit to like Mississippi. He's like, oh, he's too good for Pitt now. Darn, we're screwed without him. It's like, well, you said he sucked like 2 weeks ago, and then this random coach across the country throws him an offer. Now he's good. Is that how it works?
Oh, it works sometimes. The life of a message board is an interesting place.
Oh, we know we're way too on Panther-Lair, and it definitely rots your brain a little bit. How do you deal with constant message boards? Are like naturally terrible places, even when it's focused on something as cool and fun as Pitt football. How do you kind of separate that? Because there's some crazy stuff on Panther-Lair. People say some things. How do you kind of touch grass, metaphorically speaking, when you need to?
Usually after a loss, I let everyone go. Like I don't say anything because nobody wants to hear anything I have to say. Like if I try to bring reason into it, I get yelled down. So usually on Sundays, like I watch the NFL. I kind of let the message board do its thing. Then so like you almost like kind of need just like a break from like constantly checking your phone. So Sundays is kind of like my day where like I'm not as involved. I watch football. Then like 7 a.m. Monday morning, it's back to it. But like I kind of like I give the message board like 24 hours just to say what it's gonna say. Then I'll read it on Monday and be really glad I wasn't reading it all weekend.
We should follow that mold, because we're definitely doom scrolling on Sunday mornings, feeling sorry for ourselves because Pitt lost to Georgia Tech.
The Sunday just refresh it'll do you wonders. Trust me.
What's the worst day, like post-loss day? Like what loss do you think was the worst in terms of message board freakouts?
Western Michigan. That was not a good day, and that was one of those like everyone always like accuses me of being Mr. Positivity, but like after that game I was like, I don't know, like the ACC stinks. Like this offense is pretty good. Like they'll probably figure it out. And again, that's one of those I get shouted down. You're wrong. They lost to Western Michigan. They can't stop anyone. Then what do? They win 9 out of 10 to close out the year or something. So it's like I don't know, like. But Western Michigan was probably one of the darkest days I can remember, football-wise, basketball-wise. I'll never.
And in general in our lives.
Some people took that one rough, but honestly, I'll tell you the worst message board day, and it was before I even started working there. It was Easter Sunday, and it was whenever Kevin Stallings' name got like started floating around. There was like inconsolable people. Like it was like Easter. Like you should be eating dinner with your family or something. And like people were like, just like writing paragraphs and paragraphs. Like, I can't believe Kevin Stallings is going to be the next coach at Pitt. And I think Chris or Matt Steinberg, they confirmed, they're like, yeah, like this is actually going down, and that was a dark day for sure.
Yeah, I
They
remember
were all
thinking,
right.
like, Stallings.
Everyone was right.
They were right. They were right to ruin Easter dinner.
I admittedly didn't know much about Kevin Stallings. I knew Vanderbilt had like a little bit of tournament success, so I was like, that's interesting. But Panther-Lair taught me that it was a bad hire, and boy, were they right.
Yeah, that like if any day I can think of on Panther-Lair that was just an absolute meltdown, and it didn't even relate to a game, it was that day.
In a weird way, was that the most united that the board has ever been? There was like no arguing. Everyone was just in agreement that this is a terrible thing that's happening.
Yeah, I don't remember anyone. I don't
even
remember
more
anyone.
accepted thing.
What's your favorite off-topic thread ever? Because there's some weird ones that pop up.
I don't even know about that. There was like a debate like a couple years ago, and like one of my friends was like involved in it. And they got on the topic of, would you rather have Barry Sanders or Jerome Bettis? And like everyone was like, of course Barry Sanders. But there was this guy that was just like, no, it's Jerome Bettis. He'll get the yards in front of him, and like just like pure like Yinzer spirit, which I can appreciate.
Could you imagine if Barry Sanders was a Pittsburgh Steelers running back though? How many, like every Sunday, 30 different times, 300,000 people would be screaming, "Run forward" in unison. Like we would not be able to handle his running style.
That's what the person was right, like in the sense that like, you know what, a Steelers fan probably would want Jerome Bettis, even though Barry Sanders is much better. But that was a fun topic for sure.
Yeah, there's some pretty wild stuff on there. I'm actually glad DeMar Hamlin is a Pitt grad, and that we have a sense of like, you know, ownership, and we're very committed to him, because we seem like the fan base that would have been hook, line, and sinker for all the clone conspiracies.
Yeah,
if he wasn't like our guy.
Yeah, you know, we used to have a thing like on our message boards. It went away. It was called the locker room. Like it was like different from like the football board, and that was like the Wild West. Anything could go, and there's a reason it's not around anymore. But yeah, that it would have been a lively topic for sure.
Yeah, but he put out that video yesterday of like very much him, and so all that conspiracy went to bed. I like to think that every time a new dumb conspiracy gets resolved, JFK's real killers pop champagne like the 72 Dolphins. So tough day for conspiracy theorists.
For sure.
They're not exactly letting it go to bed either. I saw some, this is deep fake AI work on the video, but we'll let that go. Touched enough on that, but I'm just saying they're not exactly willing to take the loss just yet.
How do you transition off of DeMar Hamlin being cloned to help the NFL, you know, cover up its malpractice? Back to football, I guess. So do you think that Jurkovec represents a stark improvement over Keaton Slovis?
I think
That's a great transition.
Sometimes you can't try to be clever. It's just, all right, now it's time to stop talking about a clone-based conspiracy theory.
Will Jurkovec be a Slovis clone for Pitt?
Oh, that's good. That's good. Yeah, we'll edit around that.
Yeah, I don't think that would be a good thing. No, but I do think he fits the offense better. I mean, like his best year was in 2020 with Cignetti. So I think there's, like, when you watch Slovis this year, there was just so many, like, he was so mechanical about everything. And he was like, you could tell he was like thinking, and he just didn't process it fast for whatever reason. It's not easy to like switch offenses and do a completely different thing. So I think Jurkovec, you can kind of just hit the ground running. So I think there will be improvement in that sense. But I'm still like a little skeptical of him. Like, I don't know if he's going to be like, you're taking Boston College's quarterback, and they weren't a good team last year. So like, yeah, like you really have to hope like the connection works, because like in a vacuum, like if you just say, okay, they just took the quarterback from the 12th place team in the league. That's not exactly inspiring, but I guess the whole Pittsburgh connection, Cignetti connection, I think everyone's kind of at least thinking positive about it.
Yeah, it's kind of funny that everyone's on board for taking a quarterback that was below 500, injury prone, another transfer. It's like, yeah, this is like a sort of similar situation to Slovis, but you know what? He's a Yinzer. He'll be all right.
I think of one thing we've learned, not to assume that whatever guy that we get from the portal is going to be the next Kenny Pickett, because we were a little bit too high on Keaton Slovis, a guy who visibly declined year over year for 3 years. So I think if anything, we're at least going to go into this season with tempered expectations with Jurkovec. However, I do think that Sun Bowl showed us what this offense can look like with a quarterback that can run a sub like 5.5 second 40.
Yeah, there's no doubt like Jurkovic's more built for this offense and he's run the offense. So I think on that end, it should just, like I said, it's just going to be like a seamless transition. Like he knows what's going on. And, you know, at least most of the like Hammond, Mumfield, Bartholomew, like they all ran it last year. So I think just in general, there's always a natural progression from an offensive coordinator in his second year. And I think we should see that a little bit, if nothing else. Even if it's not great quarterback play, I think just the continuity factor, I think it will just be a little bit better.
So we're getting Jurkovec back where many of us feel he should have started his college career. However, he dropped that hot bar at the press conference this week about how all WPIAL kids should come to Pitt. What was your initial reaction when you heard that coming from Phil Jurkovec's mouth? And do you agree with him?
It was interesting because coming from him, it does, you know, I can see how people might have been rubbed the wrong way because he's like the classic, like went to Notre Dame kind of stubbed Pitt immediately. But I think there was like some kind of like life lessons behind it. It's like, you know, I thought in my head I needed to get out of Pittsburgh. I thought there was bigger programs out there. And then like, you know, I like in the press conference, I started talking to him about it. And he was just saying like everything you need in a college football program is right at Pitt, like all the facilities, everything. And so I thought that was interesting. And like one of the interesting things about it was he said during the recruiting process, like sometimes like rival schools or some of the other schools recruiting him, they would paint Pitt sharing a facility with the Steelers as a bad thing. It's like, oh, they're small time. They have to share it with the NFL team. They don't have their own thing. But like me, someone that covers recruiting and talks to thousands of recruits each year, that's the first thing they say about Pitt is like how cool it is. So it's interesting, like how teams, you know, every team recruits against another team negatively in one way, whether it's on the field or facilities or coaching. So, I mean, again, it's weird that was painted as a negative against Pitt because from my experience, from all the recruits I've ever talked to, it's always been portrayed as a positive.
Yeah, Jim, I wanted to ask a little bit about that because I do feel like with the recruits from out of state, like there's all these pieces of like recruiting, sharing the facility with the Steelers, sharing a field with the Steelers, playing in an NFL stadium. I feel like for local kids, and this might just be my personal experience, but being from Pittsburgh, growing up a Pitt fan, it's always like, oh, they need an on-campus stadium. They play in a stadium where there's a bunch of empty yellow seats. But then you hear these recruits, and the recruits are like, oh, I'll get to play on the same field the Steelers play on. So it's like, do you think there's a piece of that for the local kids who they've always heard the knocks on Pitt, and then when a kid from, let's say, Florida gets to come up to Pittsburgh, see the beautiful city, and they're like, oh, this is pretty cool.
Yeah, I do think there is definitely a connection with that. And it's like we're kind of crossing borders here, but like I was talking, like Jeff Capel always says the same thing when he recruits. Like he said that one year whenever it was all Zoom and it was like during the COVID year, like they struggled recruiting, but he's like, if I can get kids on campus and show them this city and like take them through the tunnel and they see everything, like they're so much more impressed, seeing it in person. So I do think that helps Pitt, but like as it relates to football, I think a lot of it is like these kids train like as high school kids at the facility with, their 7-on-7 coach and stuff like that. So it's like there's no awe to it. It's like, oh, like I've been working out here since I was 15 years old. So I think there is a little bit of that. So like all the stuff you hear from locals, it's like the kids also hear it too. So I do think there is a sense that I don't want to say they think Pitt's small time, but it's like it doesn't like impress them as much just because I guess they kind of know what it is.
Yeah, Steve Breston played on Heinz Field as a 17-year-old. Why wouldn't he check out Michigan, as an example? It loses its luster if you have WPIAL kids who get the opportunity to play at Heinz, Acrisure, before they can get a driver's license sometimes if they're good enough. It probably dulls the sheen a little bit.
Yeah, and I think there's just that general. It's like I know every Pitt fan wants all the local kids to stay home, and like it's kind of like at the same time, like even just talking to like Donovan McMillan and Derek Davis the other day, like I don't think there was like any like nefarious reasons. It was just like I wanted to get away for college, like an SEC school offered me. Like I get that. Like I don't think it's a big deal. I mean, you want Pitt to recruit better at home, but at the same time, like on an individual basis, like a lot of people want to get away for college and leave the state and try something new. So like I don't blame kids on that end at all. Yeah,
and with the transfer portal, we're starting to get to see more of these WPIAL kids who leave coming back. We got Dracovic. Apparently Derek Davis and Donovan McMillan were talking about their return to Pittsburgh on the field after that LSU Florida game. So we're starting to finally see a boomerang effect because the transfer portal allows these kids to reevaluate their decisions. But it begs a really good question from the pre-portal era, one that we were discussing on Twitter the other day. What WPIAL kids do you think missed out the most by not staying home and, chasing the luster of an SEC program or something else?
I mean, the classic case is like the number one has to be Robert Foster.
Absolutely. No question.
I no question. Like it just didn't work out for him at Alabama, but you saw like he caught on in the NFL a little bit. So he was like really talented. But if he was at Pitt, like he would have been featured a lot. He would have been starting as a freshman. All the things that Tyler Boyd got to do, he would have been able to do. So I think he's like the classic number one of anyone that left town that shouldn't have. It was probably him.
Yeah, I remember every year on the SEC network, I'd tune into the Alabama spring game, and he'd have like 3 catches for like 65 yards. They'd be like, "Oh, is this the year?" And it wouldn't be the year. But all the Pitt fans would get together and say, "See, you could be doing that on Saturdays if he was a Pitt."
Yeah, he's still like kind of like, again, we're talking message boards. He's still kind of like a meme, like, "Oh, when's Robert Foster transferring back to Pitt?" Like people still like to use that like as a like it's like a running joke, and it probably will be forever. But like it really is true. Like I really think he would have benefited a lot from staying at Pitt.
Yeah, I mean, we saw what Tyler Boyd did at Pitt around the same time, and now he's potentially going to be playing in another Super Bowl this year. So Robert Foster is really like he's the go-to. He's the obvious one. Are there a couple others that you think really would have benefited from staying home?
Like I thought of some like that would be fun. I guess not necessarily like it's not like their career didn't work out. In fact, like they really did. But like the one like that really like stuck out to me was like Gronk went to Woodland Hills for 1 year. Like, can you imagine if he instead of going to Arizona, he came to Pitt? Like how much of like a cult hero Rob Gronkowski would be like as a former Pitt Panther. Like he has the last name, he has the personality. Like people from Pittsburgh would love him if he would have went to Pitt.
There's no pool parties at Pitt, so
yeah.
I think the chances of getting Gronk were out the window. But I agree that would have been fun. I was thinking another one that someone mentioned on Twitter was Terrell Pryor, but for basketball.
Yeah, I mean, people forget like he was committed to Pitt for basketball, and like that is like it's kind of incredible to think about. But like if you go back and watch him, he was awesome at basketball, and like he was. I think he's a year older than me, and like. My team was in the playoffs. Like we were like 1 game away from playing. It didn't work out, but like we all just wanted to see it. Like it was like I don't remember a Western like Pennsylvania athlete that was truly like a phenom celebrity. Like like the dude would go to Kennywood and like there'd be like articles in the paper. Like he was like an absolute celebrity, like a Brawny. Like it was truly incredible. And it was kind of before like the social media age. Like he was just such a big deal.
But it always felt this way to me, and you know, you probably know a little bit better. He felt like the first recruit that like really milked the recruitment cycle for everything it was worth in terms of notoriety and all the cool things that come along with the recruiting process.
Oh, absolutely. And like he didn't sign on signing day. Like that was another thing. Like his family hired Charlie Batch to like help manage his recruitment. Like he was just different. And like, you know, most quarterbacks, they commit early because they're the foundations of class and they rush to get their spots. Like every school in the country was still willing, like you can take as long as you want. And like, I don't like, that just doesn't happen anymore. He was just so unique and it was just different for a Western Pennsylvania kid.
Yeah, he had that press conference to announce that he wasn't announcing. Yeah, very normal part of the recruitment process. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he could do whatever he wanted and schools were willing. They're like, all right, like take as much time as you need. Like we still want you.
He was a really good one. When we posed the question on Twitter, I think a lot of people said Lamont Wade was one. Guys, help me out. Who else was brought up a lot?
Drayvon Henry from Aliquippa was one I saw. He went to West Virginia. Just think he would have been an awesome DB because Pitt makes awesome DBs. Someone said still Robert Foster, even though we specifically said people other than Robert Foster. Yeah, those were the good ones. Someone mentioned Herb Pope because they were like, if we're gonna go basketball too, Herb Pope staying home would have been cool. Herb Pope had pretty awesome college career. But yeah, that was just kind of that Herb Pope, Terrell Pryor era for local hoops. If we could have got some of those guys to come here, it was around the same time. I believe they were either the same class or a year apart, Terrell Pryor and DeJuan Blair. So like, imagine both those guys. Just adding Terrell Pryor to the team that went to the Elite Eight.
Imagine trying to guard Sam Young and Terrell Pryor. Same court.
You aren't doing it. Yeah, in the perfect world, every single child born in Western Pennsylvania with, you know, a 412 area code comes and plays for Pitt. But this is just what happens when you're in a very talent-rich area and you haven't won a national championship in 50 years.
See, I just thought of another one. Like I'm going way back here. And like it was like right at the end of the Walt Harris era. He had Anthony Morelli and Andrew Johnson. Like it was a 5-star quarterback, 4-star running back. Everyone was talking. It was like, this is going to be, but neither one of them did anything in college. So I guess it didn't really, like Morelli actually played a lot for Penn State. It wasn't really good, but like he was committed to Pitt at a time. Like that was a big deal. Everyone thought he was the next Marino. It didn't work out, but I don't know if they really missed much with him either.
And maybe if Anthony Morelli went to Pitt, he wouldn't have gotten his head dribbled like a basketball by Alan Branch of Michigan that one year. That I don't know if that officially ended his productive football career, but I don't think he was ever the same after that.
No.
Andrew Johnson, he was a North Hills guy.
That he was, yeah.
Yeah, and was he committed to Pitt at any point, Jim, or was he just kind of spurned Pitt for the U?
Oh no, he was definitely. They were both committed to Pitt,
okay.
And like yeah, the coaching change happened, and like that was it. Like I kind of forget like the exact what went down, but yeah, like both of them were committed to Pitt. Everyone thought it was a big deal, and it just didn't work out.
Could you imagine the message boards if we lost a 5-star and a 4-star of the same class to Penn State and Miami? Oh,
thank God that sort of thing was not popularized around then, because Jim, you'd have your work cut out for you.
That would have been a long day. Week.
Month. Well, let's hope that Pitt can, kind of fix whatever has been ailing them the past couple years with attracting local talent. Obviously they had a good class with Nakai Johnson and Elliot Donald and Dayon Hayes, but hopefully seeing all these kids return to Pittsburgh and hopefully, fingers crossed, be stars could be very attractive to WPIAL kids going forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be huge, and like MJ Devonshire is like kind of the like I think he's poised for a big season, and maybe if someone like McMillan steps in, Jerkovic has a good year. So I mean, recruiting goes in cycles, so like there's a way to like kind of flip the script with the local kids, and I think just having success as a local kid for Pitt would do that.
You should trademark flip the script and sell the rights to it to Narduzzi in the athletic department so they can use it for recruiting.
Just more NIL money.
I was actually just gonna say, and I'm calling a timeout on it. Jim, we are trademarking this. Jim isn't allowed to. We need a name for the WPIAL kids that go to an SEC school, change their mind, and come back to Pitt. And I was gonna go with boomerangs, but flip the script is better and put it all in script letters. Trademark it. Let's start printing the T-shirts. Jim, you cannot have that. That is our intellectual property.
I'm on your podcast. I don't think I have any legal rights to this.
I'm not a lawyer, so I don't really know. Just had to make it very clear.
I'm looking up any legal precedent, but no, yeah, flip the script's a good one. I can't believe we haven't thought of that yet.
Awesome. Well, I think we have picked your brain enough on the future of Pitt basketball, football, and the best way to get yourself off of the lair when things are cycling or, vortexing into madness. We really appreciate your time. We love talking to people who clearly, well, you can't say you love Pitt because you have to stay non-partial, but we know. We love talking to people who love talking about Pitt as much as we do. So thank you so much for your time. And listeners, if you are not yet subscribed to Panther-Lair, you are not a true Pitt fan.
Yeah, guys, this was a lot of fun. I really glad we did this, and hopefully we can do it again sometime.
Oh, you're always welcome back. You and Chris have lifetime passes.
Ah, that's a nice little perk here.
Yeah, we'll print them. And you can get that and a flip the script T-shirt.
Maybe a coffee mug for the next one.
Oh yeah. Do we have any of the please win mugs lying around?
I know you got one in that cupboard down there. So
I'm connected to the laptop. I can't get up and get it. But yeah. We'll work on a package for you guys.
Sounds good.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jim, and enjoy your Sunday and hail to Pitt.
Thanks, guys.
Final Thoughts is brought to you by our newest sponsor, Prize Picks. Prize Picks is a daily fantasy app for your smartphone. On Prize Picks, you can make entries on player projections and more or less yards, points, rebounds, assists, whatever you want to do. With the Loyal Sons promo code, first-time users can deposit, and if you use the promo code, you'll get a 100% deposit match from Prize Picks. So if you deposit $100, Prize Picks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, Prize Picks will give you $50. So how does it work? You pick 2 to 6 players, and if they will go score more or less than their Prize Picks projections, and you pick the correct entries, you can win up to 25 times your money on any entry. So today we're going to put together a little entry of our own for the conference championship games. Fellas, what entries are you picking?
I think I'm going to go with I'm loving the tight ends today, especially in that AFC championship game. So I'm going to go Travis Kelce and Hayden Hurst greater than 113.5 total receiving yards. We are picking these on Sunday. So on Monday, you will get to see just how mush I am.
I'm going to focus on the NFC championship game. I'm going with Brock Purdy less than 215.5 passing yards, I think.
Love that.
Comes to an end. And I'll take Jalen Hurts more than 242.5 passing yards.
I'm going to go back to the AFC Championship. I'm going to go with Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes to throw for more than 540.5 passing yards combined. I think that's going to be a shootout. I think they'll probably both go over 300. So download Prize Picks today and play daily fantasy sports with us. Make sure to use promo code LoyalSons when you sign up for that instant deposit match and get yourself some money.
Thank you again to Jim for joining us. Love talking with him. Love getting his insights. Great show today, boys. Ton of momentum going into this week. Game on Tuesday or Wednesday against UNC, Dylan?
Wednesday.
Big game against Wednesday. The schedule kind of evens out a little bit after that. No game Saturday, so we get to give our hearts a little bit of a break. But before we go, I need you guys to hit me with your closing thoughts. Squid?
I'm going to keep them on basketball related. Pitt doesn't shoot too many threes. I think old people just don't realize that that's how basketball is played in the year 2023. Teams shoot threes. If you're good at making threes, you're probably good. So don't cry whenever Pitt shoots 25 threes next game.
And if you make 50% of them that you're not shooting, no number you're shooting is too many.
I was going to say, if you're making 50%, you can shoot as many threes as you want. Take 100 if we're going to hit 50 of them. My closing thought, Kancey getting well-deserved appreciation. Mel Kiper put him at number 10 in his most recent mock draft. And because of that, the NFL draft Twitter nerds are now grinding the tape and are freaking out watching Kancey film. So he'll have some momentum running on up to the draft. He's probably going to test insane at the combine. Everyone's going to say he's undersized. Doesn't matter. Watch the film, watch the tape. Kancey, dog.
Yeah, I would recommend all of our listeners to search Kancey on Twitter right now and just scroll the videos, because there's all these people doing their breakdowns, and his film was just hilarious.
Yeah, it's really weird that the consensus All-American is a good football player, and that people needed to have an epiphany about it months after the football season, that he absolutely dominated start to finish. Draft analyst Twitter is weird. Draft analysts are weird. This is why they are not working in front offices. So good on Kancey. Hope to see him taken in the first round. My final thought, if any of the loyal sons out there have like a foolproof mouse wrangling strategy, or like a trap that you swear by, slide into our DMs, because the loyal sons headquarters, it's not like we aren't being overrun, but there's enough of them. And, the traps are kind of doing their job a little bit, trying to figure out what bait to use. Just, we could use your help. If you have any expertise on the topic, we could use a little bit of help. Right, Dylan?
Yeah. Let us know, please.
Have you considered buying a few cats?
No. Stop.
Just babysit a cat for the weekend, and it'll just send a message to the mice like, oh, yeah, you think you found a nice home? Well, I got a cat, so find a new one.
A rental cat has been considered.
A rental cat has been considered. We just kind of haven't figured out the logistics of that yet. My worry is that certain people who plan to move into my home in the next year will then take that as, oh, well, we need one full time. And I don't think I can. I don't want them to get used to having a cat around the house. It would be a problem. But yeah, if you have any suggestions outside of buying my girlfriend a cat to help get rid of these mice, please. Our DMs are open. Our email is loyalsonsemail@gmail.com, because someone had the loyalsons@gmail.com for some reason.
I was actually curious why we added the email in our name. But
yeah, right. I don't love it. It was the next best option. Anyway, thank you everyone for tuning in. And as always, hail loyal sons of Pittsburgh.
Are you or someone you know looking for work in a recession-proof industry? Are you someone that's interested in things like having health care, having a 401k, immediate PTO accrual, an employee assistance program, or referral payouts? Our newest sponsor, Haddad Accelerated Delivery, an Amazon delivery partner, is looking for safety-minded and dependable drivers to join their delivery service team. Be a part of a company that will encourage self-ownership and award bonuses based on exceptional safety and delivery efforts. This is the ideal gig for individuals seeking full-time work or students interested in making some pretty good money during breaks. If you or someone you know is safety-focused, hardworking, organized, efficient, and team-oriented, text HADD to 464-646 to apply. I understand that is an impossible string of letters and numbers, so here it is again. That's HADD to 464-646. For a job that's the total package, get it? Because, it's deliveries. Haddad Accelerated Delivery is the place for you.